Hi, this is Marshall Toplansky.
And Joel Kotkin.
And welcome to the Feudal Future podcast. If you're listening, it means you're interested in creating a better future, one that values diverse discussion and preserves opportunity for the middle and working classes.
This is why we started the show, to bring together ideas and people that challenge the notion of a hierarchical, socially stagnant, and centrally programmed future. Maybe you've experienced the rising costs of home ownership, diminishing job prospects, or the burden of overregulation and increasingly censorship. This is happening in cities everywhere, and we recognize the need for new action.
For this reason, we created the Beyond Feudalism Facebook group, a place for you to connect and share resources with like-minded people. Here you'll be able to ask questions, network, and share your own stories and ideas on how we can bring opportunity and common sense back into our civil discourse and governance.
Consider this a hub for all things feudal, where we'll be sharing insights from our recent Beyond Feudalism report with Chapman University, clips and highlights from the podcast, and links to related content on topics such as housing, education, energy, transportation, and entrepreneurship. Much of our focus has been so far on California, but we expect to see this work and apply this work to conditions around the world.
Well, as you can probably tell, we're not too excited about the path we're currently on as a society, but we are hopeful for what's possible. And if we can better understand what's happening and build momentum to overcome the trends, so much the better.
So we encourage you to join the Facebook group via the link below to get involved and keep up-to-date information on all new developments. And for more information, my new book, The Coming of Neo-Feudalism, outlines everything that's happening and where we need to change. The link to that is also in the show description.
So thank you very much for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy the show.
These alternative schools are populated by youngsters who all have demonstrated or rely on misbehavior and opposition to authority. This is like another step en route to involvement in the criminal justice system.
This is Joel Kotkin.
And this is Marshall Toplansky.
And you're listening to the Feudal Future podcast. Our society is being rapidly reduced to a feudal state, a process now being exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Millions of small businesses are near extinction. Millions more are losing their jobs, and many others will be stuck in the status of propertyless serfs. The big winners have been the expert class of the clerisy, and most of all, the tech oligarchs, who benefit as people rely more on algorithms than human relationships.
With this, around the world, the middle class is becoming more squeezed than ever, and it's having profound economic, social, and spiritual implications. Here on the show, we're having conversations with business, government, and citizen leaders like you to get to the core of these issues and explore how we can work together to form a better future than the one we're headed towards. Hello, and welcome to the Feudal Future podcast. Joel Kotkin and I are delighted today to be hosting Clarence Carter. Clarence is a fellow graduate of a well-known Eastern business school and a section mate of mine from Harvard Business School, who was addressed by many in our class by his childhood name of Nink. So we're going to call you Nink today, Nink. Okay. Before attending Harvard, Nink grew up in inner city Brooklyn and earned undergraduate and graduate degrees from Michigan State University and worked with incarcerated adolescent boys and managed programs for academically deficient and sometimes behaviorally troubled as well adolescent public school students. After a lengthy and rewarding career in corporate America, which included positions with Xerox, General Motors, Lear-Siegler and Square D corporations. He retired and became principal of a non-public K through 12 school. Well, following his tenure as an educator, Nink and his wife, Donna Carter, Dr. Donna Carter, who is a retired school superintendent, founded GateWay Second Chance Foundation and GateWay Boarding Academy, nonprofit foundations that are designed to minimize the risk of academically and behaviorally deficient adolescent boys becoming ensnared in our inadequate criminal justice system, which is obviously marred by racism and classism. And that is one of the main reasons for wanting to have Nink with us today. Welcome, because we want to hear about what it is that you're doing that hopefully will overcome some of these systemic issues that we have with students and kids that are ensnared by the system. Tell us what it's all about, Nink.
Okay, my wife and I, as you've indicated, established the GateWay Second Chance Foundation and its programming arm, which is GateWay Boarding Academy. And the reason for it was that we certainly were and are aware that we have young men who are so severely deficient academically. For example, basic foundational academic skills that one is supposed to acquire from kindergarten through grade 4, they don't get. So basic reading, math, that kind of thing, they don't have, but yet they are promoted socially to subsequent grade levels, which means that the difficulty and the sense of being less than because they are always failing academically is exacerbated with the difficulty of each subsequent grade level. So that continues until they drop out of school or, get this, are graduated in spite of academic inadequacy. So they are not prepared. They don't have the skill set that would enable them to take advantage of any kind of trade, vocational, or academic opportunities to prepare for gaining gainful employment. So what are you going to do if you cannot gain gainful employment? You don't voluntarily elect to simply starve. You will seek a way to earn money. Unfortunately, some seek ways that get them entangled in the pipeline to prison, as we call it. And unfortunately, because of the systemic racism in our country, the criminal justice system, once they are caught into that, is really like the end of any kind of decent future that they can have. So we concluded that we need to offset the way in which they are being penalized by the schools that they attend, and these are typically inner city schools, and provide them not only with a second chance to earn those academic skills, which they didn't earn, but also problem solving and life skills, and to modify misbehavior. As far as misbehavior is concerned, in part, that misbehavior is caused by their attempt to compensate for feelings of inadequacy and being less than. That is, if I am going to be considered the class dummy, I can resort to being the class clown, or simply being anti-authority in the class. And I'll have status in the male peer group, but that just gets me involved more and more in difficulty with the authorities of the school. And if a youngster, a young boy, is not yet old enough to be expelled from school, there is an approach that the public school system tends to use, which is called alternative schools. These alternative schools are populated by youngsters who all have demonstrated or rely on misbehavior in opposition to authority. So this is like another step en route to involvement in the criminal justice system. So what we've done with our program is we give them that second chance to acquire the academic, life skills, and problem-solving skills. And we do so in an environment that first and foremost enables them to start to trust authority, to be willing to let down their defensiveness and acknowledge that they don't have the skills that they need to have. And instead of us simply trying to rely on heartfelt sympathy, we've purchased instructional systems in reading and math from Harcourt, Mifflin. I think I got that backwards. Harcourt, Mifflin, something Harcourt. Anyway, we've purchased their systems, which are evidence-based. And what we do is we assess by computer the level of deficiency of a youngster when he first comes into the program. So we've quantified just exactly what the deficiencies are, rather than simply trying to make a guess of where the problems are. And we've hired teachers who have backgrounds, they are professional teachers, and they have backgrounds in working with youngsters whose learning styles are culturally influenced. So the youngster feels far more comfortable in our program than they feel in public school. Now, there are two populations of youngsters that we created this organization to serve. One, they are 12 to 16-year-olds who are still in public school, and we work with them after school. The other are 14 to 21-year-olds who are involved with or have been involved with the juvenile justice system or foster care. Unfortunately, financially, we are not in a position to really address those who have been or are involved in the juvenile justice system. They typically have, they don't have the supportive community or family situation to help them. And also, our goal was to acquire a residential facility so that they could reside in a supportive environment while going through the process of receiving a second chance to get the skills that they would need to have any shot at a decent future. So
at your current level of funding, how many students can you touch in a year?
17.
17.
17.
And Nink, I just wanted to ask you about this because yours is a public charter, right?
Ours is not a charter school. We are a nonprofit, private 501c3 organization.
So, what's your relationship been with the school districts? A lot of school districts are very negative about anything that's outside of their control. Have you been able to develop a good relationship with the local school district?
Hit and miss. Some yes, others no. We've had a workaround. That is, we meet with parents, identified parents of the kind of boys that I've told you about through community organizations and things of that nature. And when we tell them about the program, which we don't charge anything, we fund what we're doing through donations. And that makes it appealing for these parents. And they then have the authority to refer their boys to us for assessment as to whether the program would likely benefit them or not.
But are there no public funds that are made available? Like, sometimes kids in Los Angeles, people will go to the help group or some independent nonprofit that is but they're referred by the school districts. That doesn't happen, or
the school district requires insurance, especially insurance that covers any sexual misbehavior. That is very, very costly. And remember, we don't charge anything for the services that we provide. So we are limited in the degree to which we can establish a formal relationship with the school system. So our approach has been indirect, going through organizations that members on our board or we personally have access to, where we meet the parents of the boys that we serve. And also they then pass on through word of mouth what we're doing, the existence of the foundation and that kind of thing. Ideally, if we had more funding, we could certainly establish a formal relationship with the public schools, because we could afford to pay, and that's an annual fee of about what's been estimated as $5,000 to $10,000 per year.
Tell us a little bit about the results. How long have you been doing this, and what kind of results have you seen?
Okay, we were established in 2015, but it took us approximately 2 years before we could locate and lease a facility that we're at currently. And right now, we feel pretty proud of the fact that 80% of the boys have shown growth and progress toward grade level performance. And let me tell you something, to say that they suffer from deficiencies, academic deficiencies, can be considered a euphemism for the degree of deficiency that they actually have. In some instances, we have youngsters with IEPs, and IEPs,
right,
another term for special education.
Right.
And it takes them a little longer. It's more challenging for them to progress, but they do progress. Also, I think not only is it the instructional ability of the staff that we've hired that accounts for the boys' ability to progress, but they establish a sense of esprit de corps with other youngsters that are in the program. They are no longer the outsider, I guess, less than commonplace youngster who should be doing better. Imagine if you're in the 10th grade and your tested reading level is at the 4th grade. Imagine if you're in middle school and your reading level or math level is at the 3rd or 2nd grade. It's incredible. And when we say reading, we don't simply mean reading literally or literacy. What we mean is more detail, ability to summarize, comprehend, ability to draw inferences, all of those things, to sound out a word, things that you would normally associate with early elementary school grades, they don't have.
I understand the academic issues. How do you deal with the behavioral issues? Because doesn't that really, in many cases, really, it's not an issue necessarily of cognitive awareness or intelligence, but more sort of behavior issue. How do you deal with that?
Okay, our approach is a multifold approach. Firstly, when they come into the program, we immediately confiscate their cell phones temporarily, but we take the cell phone.
I have to make my daughter do that.
Okay.
Can you come into my classes and my lectures at Chapman University and do the same thing? I think that would be
By the way,
policy of confiscating student cell phones.
the first thing I do in my class is to tell them no phones.
Well, I totally understand how disruptive and how much that technology just takes over their lives.
Yes.
And diverts attention from what the task is at hand. Yes.
But what we find is as they become more comfortable in the program, that they come to understand that we care for them, care about them, and they choose to want to please us and stay in a positive relationship, they are less resistant to turning over their cell phones to us when they come in. Not only the cell phones, but how they are attired. Pull up your pants. Don't come in with your pants hanging down, showing your underwear. We can tell them that because we are accepting of them. They know that we accept them. They know we care for them. And they know that we are giving them points that will help them. How they solve problems and the fact that they have to take responsibility for decisions that they make is one of the fundamental values that our organization pushes, encourages. And we don't do it in the way of lecturing. We do it only when an opportunity arises that we can make the point.
You know, so what I hear you saying is that you have created this nurturing, embracing environment that takes them out of the day-to-day world that they're in. What do you do to help sensitize them to emerge into the real world once post working with you? How do you help ease them into the reality of dealing with the broader world?
Okay, in terms of the requirements of the broader world, is that?
Yeah, right.
Okay. We have a program that begins on July 6th of this year, where we've recruited some business owners. They all are African Americans. They have, one is a electrician, another is a small furniture manufacturer, and the third is an HVAC business owner. And what we're doing is we've developed a math curriculum that is tied into the kind of tasks that our young boys will be assigned in these different businesses. Also, they will be attending math classes 2 days of the 4 days in the week that will reinforce the math that they will be exposed to as they carry out the jobs. They will be paid for these jobs. And they have been told, as have the business owners, that they are to treat these youngsters like employees, to let the youngsters know that you have to show up on time. If you don't show up on time, you're going to be penalized in the way of perhaps not being paid or not continuing in the position. So that's one kind of example. Another is that we have a mentoring program, and these are male African-American men. And what they are charged with doing is establishing relationships with the boys who, when they attempt to apply the new problem-solving methods that we've imparted to them back in their community, they have some challenges because other boys in their peer group don't solve problems the way they've been encouraged to change to solve problems. So we give them a coach, which is the mentor, with whom they can discuss and trust and ask advice for how to deal with their peers and with the new values, problem solving, et cetera, that they've developed as a part of our program.
Well, it sounds as though you've thought through the life cycle of the progression of somebody from, first originally getting started with you and being recruited by you to be in the program, through their immersion on the other end to actually kind of mainstream broader society.
Right.
How many classes have you had, in essence, of going through now? Have you had one or two? Is this the first one that's coming out now?
Oh no, this is 2017, 18 was the first class. And we had an experience that wasn't that positive with the 2017, 2018 class, but it brought to our mind that there are two different populations of boys that we will be dealing with. The group in the 2017, 2018, some of its graduates wound up in those alternative schools, and we've also received reports about some involvement in shooting events or something like that. So we recognize that we are not equipped to help that youngster until we get a residential facility whereby we can change the environment while we are providing that second chance that we've talked about.
Before we wrap up, I think this is really fascinating. Given the conflicts that we're seeing in this country right now, and I look at a program like yours and I say, isn't there some way on a national basis that we can start to address these issues in a different way than the way we have in the past? Are there lessons for the rest of the country from what you've experienced and what you're doing?
I believe there are. I have a very good friend. He lives in Arizona. We consider each other brothers with a different mother. He is white. I am Black. Yet we are of the same heart. He's 82 years old. And with the recent demonstrations and so forth, he was saying, well, what can I do to help? I'm 82. I can't get out here and do demonstrations and things of that nature. And what he should do, because he has extensive social networks, is use those networks, even if you leverage them and get into other networks, to take active political steps to change the political environment, which is what sustains the systemic racism that this country is being marred by. So, at each level of government, local, school boards, whatever, district attorneys, et cetera, state levels, state legislatures, which pass laws that suppress voting, and the federal level, get involved, actively support those who are against the things that support systemic racism, and those who really are for, whether they admit it or not, systemic racism, work your butt off to get them removed. That's my suggestion.
And as you look ahead at things that could be done on a policy level, you and your wife have both been involved in the public school and the not public school alternative environment, which strikes me as being kind of aimless at the moment in terms of being able to focus on goals like what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. So if we were to have a change in government and policy at the federal level, what policies do you think specifically we should be looking at enacting in order to be able to create more, larger number of students being able to go through your program and enable your program to flourish?
Okay. The government certainly could fund us, because that's key. Access to that kind of funding with requirements for accountability are vital. I mean, if we're going to have a residential facility to meet the needs of the youngsters I described, that population, if we are going to be able to expand our program with respect to youngsters that are in the public school, so we can pay not only additional staff, but that we can pay for the insurance that's required, I think that programs like ours could be very, very helpful. But I also think that unless you have more political control that is interested in the kind of youngsters that we're talking about having a decent shot at a future, that we will just be a small factor in changing the lives of this kind of population. And they're widespread. The number is humongous. So just having one organization like mine,
it needs to be replicated everywhere.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Well, hopefully when we will be sending this out to the public, that more people will be exposed to what you're doing, because it just seems to me to be getting to the actual core issue. Because again, being an alter caca, I've seen, people consciousness raised, but nothing done systemically that really changes the situation. Putting, Jeff Bezos making a statement that I support, Black Lives Matter. Well, that, as we used to say in New York, that in a subway token will get you a ride on the subway.
Well,
you remember that one, right?
It's great to see a program that actually gets results, and, if you match that with what's going on in the broader society, we are in tremendous need of being able to revitalize the middle class, to be able to provide. I mean, there actually is a middle class job shortage, or not job shortage, a people shortage of filling jobs. People are looking for employees. Companies are looking for employees to fill those HVAC jobs, fill those contractor jobs,
right?
And to be able to do what you've done, which is to work with the employers, match up the education and say, hey, you know what? When somebody goes into an HVAC job, they need to know how to calculate cubic feet of airspace, right?
Yes.
And be able to say, okay, that's the math we're going to teach you. Is exactly the kind of thing we need to be able to revitalize the middle class. So,
the summer program where they will be employees also helps them realize that learning math has value in the real world. It's not just an intellectual exercise. It has real value.
Right.
And look, you can even make some money learning the math.
And that's the point, right? That's the point of being able to create success in society, so that you then don't have to, resort to stuff that gets you in trouble with the criminal justice system.
Exactly.
Right.
So, well, Nink Carter, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
The time.
Oh, thank you guys.
We're so excited about what you and Donna are doing, and to our audience, you can see under Nink's name there is his email address. And if you if you want to reach out to him directly, or if you want to donate money to the foundation or find out more about it, just go to gatewaysecondchance.org, and hopefully you will be able to be as inspired by what they're doing as we are. So thank you very much, Nink.
Thank you, Nink.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. Appreciate you.
Take care.
Why is GateWay Second Chance Foundation needed? Here are the statistics. Roughly 12% of the United States population is black. Yet recently, black Americans constituted 30% of persons arrested for a property offense and 38% of persons arrested for a violent offense. Black youths account for 16% of all children in America, yet make up 28% of juvenile arrests. African American males are 6 times more likely to be incarcerated than white males and 2.5 times more likely than Hispanic males. If current trends continue, 1 of every 3 black American males born today can expect to go to prison in his lifetime, as can 1 of every 6 Latino males, compared to 1 of every 17 white males.
Good afternoon. I'm Donna Carter,
And I'm Clarence Carter.
and we are the founders of GateWay Second Chance Foundation and GateWay Boarding Academy.
The foundation was established because we knew that there was a need for the young men, the young adolescent boys, quite frankly, that we serve and work with. They are definitely in need of academic strengthening because they're having struggles academically, and also they need to be equipped with life skills, functional life skills, which essentially amount to more rational decision making, taking responsibility for decisions that they make, and things of that nature. We started the foundations when both of us were retired. That was back in 2015. And our backgrounds really gave us a lot of familiarity with the kind of youngster that we serve now and why we actually started the foundation. We both worked at a training school in Michigan back in the day for young men that were adjudicated delinquents. That was the early part of what today is referred to as the pipeline to prison. These youngsters had all kinds of academic challenges which were exacerbated by behavioral issues as well. So once we got retired, we decided, given our background, our familiarity with this type of youngster, our knowledge that this problem did exist, and because of our professional as well as personal experience, meaning Donna, who is really Dr. Carter, was a superintendent of schools. She was also a remedial reading teacher. I was a principal of a private school. So we had the educational experience, and we decided we're not going to just live retired, we're going to be actively retired.
Absolutely.
The ultimate goal of the foundation is to acquire and fund an academy that will provide the wraparound services needed for at-risk young men from all ethnic groups in Prince George's County, Maryland. The boarding school would house and educate the young men, thus requiring adequate dormitory, academic, and recreational facilities. While acquiring the necessary funds for such a building, an interim residential facility is planned to provide the home environment needed to address the social needs of these young men. Hence, a large home in a residential community is currently being pursued. The foundation, which began raising funds in 2015, has already established administrative offices, begun an after-school tutoring program, and has created an annual summer adventure activities program. Here are some of the success stories.
Yes, I do love the program. It helps me with things that I struggle with and what I can overcome. So you guys help me with like math, reading, and you guys get to the specific details. So that's what I like about the program.
I joined the program 2 years ago, when my brother he asked me to come along for an enrollment interview. My brother struggles with behavioral issues and challenges in math and reading, and I value the program because I've seen the impact the program has had on my brother Lucky, and I wish when I was growing up there was a program like this to help students who maybe weren't as strong in math and reading. And I think not only do the students benefit from the academic support, but also the social support with the other students in the program. And I enjoy volunteering in the program, and I hope that we can touch many other students.
I love the program, and it's given me a lot of information how things I never seen before.
I learned that it's making me read better. It's making me do my math better, and how to pronounce my words better, and trying to get what's the stories about, and what's like how to say the words that I be struggling with. So it's helping me. I'm getting there.
Thus far, the Foundation has had success in its annual fundraising prayer breakfast, including keynote speakers, former County Executive Rashern Baker, retired Federal Court Judge Alexander Williams, Montgomery County Park Police Chief Daryl McSwain, and most recently, County Executive Angela Alsobrooks.
It is also the great civil rights issue of our day, and we have to fight anyone who comes between our young men in their education.
From these inspiring prayer breakfast fundraisers, a strong group of volunteers have been organized, and financial supporters called the Sustaining Parents have emerged as our greatest source of funds. The range of the monthly contributions is large, from as little as $5 per month from a 10-year-old youngster's allowance to as much as $250 per month from a generous contributor. But to maintain and build a school, our plan is to broaden this base of sustaining parents. To start a capital campaign, we're also pursuing major contributors to help fund the approximately $5 million needed to reach our ultimate goal, a well-run academy. This will interrupt this pipeline that funnels all too many wasted lives into our criminal justice system.